Well, folks, gather round because this story is a doozy. Former U.S. President Donald Trump decided to weigh in on South Africa. He started talking about a white genocide. Yes, you heard that right. A white genocide. In South Africa. Please don't forget to subscribe. Enter John Dramani Mahama, Ghana's president. He called Trump's claims an insult to all Africans. Mahama's response was a detailed, thoughtful, and firm rebuttal. He saw the danger in letting such falsehoods go unchallenged. Mahama's words were a powerful reminder that Africa's story will be told by Africans, and those are principles worth fighting for. John Mahama didn't pull any punches when he dissected Trump's claims. He stated very clearly that such rhetoric, this talk of white genocide, wasn't just a harmless gaffe. Mahama argued that these kinds of wild, unfounded statements can be leveraged to extend the effects of previous injustices. The previous injustices we're talking about colonialism, about apartheid. These aren't small things. These are systems that literally stole land, stole lives, and tried to steal dignity from millions of black Africans for generations. Mahama accused Trump of historical revisionism. Mahama asserted quite rightly that Trump's remarks showed a profound disrespect for Africans. They undermined the dignity and sovereignty of African nations. The core of Mahama's argument was that Trump's words were a fundamental distortion of historical truth. He wasn't just getting a few facts wrong, he was painting an entirely false picture, a picture designed to provoke, to divide, and perhaps to distract. Mahama highlighted that if black South Africans, after enduring decades, centuries even, of unimaginable brutality under apartheid, had truly sought revenge against the Afrikaner population, surely they would have done so decades ago. The restraint and the commitment to reconciliation shown by black South Africans is one of the most remarkable stories of the 20th century. Instead of vengeance, South Africa chose a path, however difficult, towards a rainbow nation. Trump's narrative completely ignores this reality. It's a slap in the face to all of that hard work and sacrifice. To truly understand why Trump's comments cut so deep, we need to talk about history. John Mahama made sure to bring this context to the forefront. He reminded the world of the brutal legacy of colonization. European powers didn't just show up in Africa for a holiday, they came to conquer, to exploit, and to dominate. For centuries, African people were treated as less than human in their own lands. Then came apartheid in South Africa. This wasn't just regular run-of-the-mill racism. This was racism codified into law. It was a system meticulously designed to separate people by race, to give all power and privilege to a white minority, and to ruthlessly suppress the black majority. Black South Africans were denied basic human rights. They couldn't vote, they couldn't own land in most areas. They were forced to live in impoverished townships, often separated from their families. They endured past laws, police brutality, and massacres. Mahama specifically pointed out that under apartheid, black South Africans endured systemic oppression, displacement, and death. Their land was stolen. Their cultures were suppressed. One of the most troubling aspects of Donald Trump's white genocide claim, as highlighted by John Mahama, was how it was built on a foundation of pure misinformation. This wasn't just a difference of opinion, it was a deliberate use of falsehoods. Mahama accused Trump of using a video that included completely unrelated images from the Democratic Republic of Congo to try and back up his narrative about South Africa. This use of fake news is a serious problem. It muddies the waters. It makes it harder for people to know what's true and what's not. And when you're dealing with sensitive issues like racial tensions and historical injustices, misinformation can be incredibly dangerous. It can incite hatred. It can fuel division. Mahama pointed out that South African President Cyril Ramaphosa was effectively misrepresented and ambushed by these false accusations. The white genocide narrative itself is a well-known trope in far-right circles. It's been debunked countless times. Reputable organizations, journalists, and academics have investigated and found no evidence to support it. Crime in South Africa is a serious issue, affecting all communities, but it is not a targeted genocide against white people. To suggest otherwise is to ignore the facts and to play into a racist agenda. Mahama's condemnation called out this manipulation for what it was, a dangerous fiction designed to stir fear and resentment, often for political gain. While apartheid officially ended decades ago, its shadow still looms large over South Africa. John Mahama was keen to point this out, providing crucial context to Trump's baseless claims. He highlighted a stark reality. Despite the transition to democracy, white South Africans, who make up less than 10% of the population, still control an astonishingly disproportionate amount of the country's land and wealth. Some reports suggest they control over 70% of the land, Now, how does that square with a narrative of white genocide? It doesn't. It points to the deep systemic inequalities that are the true legacy of apartheid, inequalities that the country is still grappling with today. These economic disparities are not accidental. They are the direct result of centuries of policies designed to dispossess black Africans and enrich the white minority. Land was systematically taken, opportunities were denied, and an entire economic system was built on racial exploitation. Undoing this legacy is a monumental task. It involves complex issues like land reform, economic empowerment, and ensuring equal access to education and healthcare. These are the real challenges facing South Africa, not some phantom genocide. The focus on a fabricated crisis distracts from the urgent need to address these very real, very deep-seated problems. Mahama's intervention was vital in reminding the world that South Africa's story is one of a nation striving to overcome a brutal past, not one of a minority under existential threat from the majority they once oppressed. John Mahama's response to Trump wasn't just about defending South Africa, it was a clarion call for Pan-African solidarity. He reminded everyone of Ghana's historical support for South Africa during the darkest days of apartheid. Following atrocities like the Sharpeville Massacre in 1960 and the Soweto Uprising in 1976, Ghana, under leaders inspired by Pan-African ideals, stood firmly with the anti-apartheid movements. This history of solidarity forms a powerful backdrop to Mahama's current stance. He urged African leaders to unite against what he termed disrespect and neo-colonial attitudes. Neo-colonialism isn't about old-school empires planting flags, it's more subtle. It's about economic pressure, cultural dominance, and the kind of dismissive, misinformed rhetoric that Trump engaged in. Mahama's message was clear: African nations need to stand together to ensure their collective voice is heard and respected on the global stage. When one African nation is unfairly attacked or misrepresented, it affects the entire continent. Unity, therefore, is not just a nice idea, it's a strategic necessity. In his powerful op-ed, Mahama echoed the famous words of Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah: "Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa." These words, spoken decades ago, still resonate with incredible power today. Mahama's invocation of this sentiment connects the current struggle against misinformation and disrespect to the broader historical fight for African self-determination and sovereignty. It's a reminder that the journey isn't over. John Mahama emphasized the importance of memory and truth in the quest for justice. He quoted Ngugi wa Thiong'o on how language can dominate and erase cultures. Trump's use of terms like white genocide distorts reality and undermines African history. Controlling the story is a form of power. Mahama invoked Archbishop Desmond Tutu's wisdom. Tutu said, "If you want to destroy a people, you destroy their memory." These words capture a profound truth. Rewriting South Africa's past attacks memory and history. Mahama defended South Africa's historical integrity. Memory and truth are crucial for historical justice. A peaceful future cannot be built on lies. Distorting Africa's past risks perpetuating violence. Twisting history for political ends dooms us to repeat it. South Africa's reconciliation was built on confronting the truth. The fight for historical truth has real-world consequences. John Mahama's strong condemnation of Donald Trump didn't just make headlines in Africa, it resonated globally. Reports indicated that his statement garnered significant international attention, with many global leaders and organizations reportedly expressing support for his principled stance. This wasn't just a fleeting news item, it was seen by many as a significant moment. It highlighted an increasing assertiveness among African leaders, a willingness to stand up and robustly defend the continent's interests and dignity on the world stage. No longer content to be passive recipients of external narratives, African voices are demanding to be heard and respected. This bold warning, as some media outlets described it, is being viewed as a pivotal moment in African diplomacy. Why pivotal? Because it signals a shift. It shows that African leaders are prepared to directly challenge powerful figures, even former U.S. presidents, when they peddle harmful falsehoods about the continent. This is important because for too long Africa has been spoken about rather than listened to. Mahama's intervention is part of a broader trend where African nations are increasingly shaping their own destinies and defining their own place in the world order, moving beyond outdated colonial or neo-colonial dynamics. The incident and Mahama's articulate response could very well foster increased solidarity among African nations. When leaders see one of their own speak out so effectively and receive international backing, it can be empowering. It might encourage more coordinated responses to future instances of disrespect or misinformation. Furthermore, this episode could influence future diplomatic relations, not just between specific African nations and the United States, but in terms of how the entire continent engages with global powers. It's a reminder that partnership must be based on mutual respect and an honest understanding of history and current realities. In concluding his powerful statement, John Mahama drew a stark and necessary contrast. He juxtaposed Donald Trump's fabricated claims about a white genocide in South Africa with the real crises that are actually facing our world. He pointed to the plight of genuine refugees fleeing conflict and persecution, and the ongoing genocides and mass atrocities that demand urgent international attention and action. This perspective is so important. It cuts through the noise and reminds us where our focus and energy should truly lie. Wasting breath and resources on manufactured outrage is a luxury the world can ill afford. Mahama lamented, "Our world is in real crisis, and yet we must waste breath on fabrications that dishonor our past and derail our progress." This sentiment captures the frustration felt by many. There are so many pressing global challenges: climate change, poverty, pandemics, wars. These are the issues that require our collective intelligence, our resources, and our political will. To be distracted by baseless, divisive rhetoric is not just unhelpful, it's actively detrimental to the cause of human progress and global stability. It diverts attention from those who genuinely need help and from the complex problems that demand solutions. The core message of Mahama's essay, and indeed his broader intervention, was a passionate plea for respect. Respect for African dignity, respect for African history, and respect for African sovereignty. It was a call to engage with Africa based on truth and mutual understanding, not on prejudice or political